Welcome to Peacevision. We are a portal for positive change, and we're going to tell you how you can make a change because we're going to talk to a man who's devoted his life to making this planet a better place and somehow has made it to still pay the bills. So please welcome Dave Randle. Dave, pleasure to see you.
Pleasure to be with you again, John.
So I know that your career in giving back, and I know you're very involved with ocean matters and saving our oceans and our waterways, but you started a long time ago with a musician by the name of John Denver. Tell me about that.
Well, actually, I started before that. I started really getting serious about environmental issues as a career idea in college, where I was assigned to coordinate for not only our college, the entire community of Thousand Oaks, California, the first Earth Day. And our program was not just a one-day program. We did programs for the entire week. So that really helped me learn a lot. It helped me make some connections. It helped me really understand that I really did have an internal passion and desire to want to do something with the earth. I then went on to become the first environmental minister in the country, if not the world. I ended up doing a specialized program in transpersonal psychology and environmental ethics, and later a doctorate in wellness and spiritual disciplines and environmental concerns to follow that. But while I was living in Aspen, Colorado, the county commissioners hired me to fight a water diversion project. And I got to get John Denver involved in going to Washington, D.C. and testifying before Congress with me. And John was excited about the briefing that I gave him and said that he needed someone like me on his team. And I got hired to be his environmental political advisor, where my job description was to find a minimum of one thing a year he could do in the areas of energy. Back then it was appropriate technology versus the nuclear, preservation of wildlands, particularly Alaska, ocean issues, particularly whales and dolphins, world hunger, Native American rights, and the space program. So my job—
You guys covered a lot of ground together.
Yeah, so I had to find at least one thing, and so I could do more than one, but at least one every year that would be done with another organization. So after, whether it was a concert, a speech, or whatever kind of involvement John had, there would be some organization I could follow up with. So it wouldn't be just like everybody come to a concert and have a good time and then go home and nothing happened. And that had been John's experience before I started working with him. So we got very strategic on how to use his media influence. And back then he was the most popular entertainer in the world. And there was very little cable. It was just coming into being. There was no internet. And so every time he was on a television program, whether it was his show or the Tonight Show or the Muppets or anything like that, they'd have an average of 85 million people that would watch. So with that kind of viewership, you have a lot of political clout and you can open a lot of doors. I really had an opportunity to learn from some of the top thinkers in the world, spend a lot of personal time with people like Buckminster Fuller and Amory Lovins and so forth, over the years doing that.
So for somebody that's watching this program right now and may want to follow in your footsteps in the sense that they want to devote their life to making this planet a better place, what tips would you give them?
Well, I tell my students the number one thing that I have found for success is showing up. 90% of success is showing up. And by showing up, I mean, find the issues that you're concerned about and show up to those meetings, show up to those organizations, show up to those issues and see how you can make a contribution. And what you'll find is there's a huge leadership vacuum in most environmental movements around the country. And if you're dedicated and serious, you'll be elevated to higher leadership very quickly. And you'll have an opportunity then to get better experience and you'll be able to do things. But it also is true, like politically, when we were working on the National Endangered American Wilderness Act, We showed up at every single meeting that was happening, whether it was done by the Forest Service or the Bureau of Reclamation or the Division of Wildlife or the Fish and Wildlife or the county commissions or the water conservancy boards. Just showing up and being involved, we got to know the players, we got to build relationships, and we got to develop strategies that ultimately enabled us to get that legislation passed and signed into law. And that was not an easy task. In fact, I got a call one day by the Sierra Club telling me to back off because it was impossible to succeed when our own local congressman was against us. That the Congress would never go against the local congressman for a wilderness area in his district. Well, guess what? They did, and we got exactly what we wanted. But I would say the showing up is the main feature. The other is to ongoing education. I'm taking courses still today, from the University of Michigan right now. But every opportunity you have to learn more, whether it's a seminar, a workshop, a webinar, or an actual online course or courses at universities, keep yourself informed and educated on the issues so you can speak convincingly and intelligently on them. And then third, build coalitions with your friends, your family, the other organizations that you might volunteer with and have connections, and broaden your base of influence. Those would be three things I'd start with.
That's great advice. Last question I'm going to ask you. After a lifetime of activism and environmental awareness, what is your most satisfactory story or the thing that you're the most proud of in that long, illustrious career of yours?
Well, I think for me, the issue I just mentioned, saving the Hunter Frying Pan wilderness area from having all the water diverted out by the Bureau of Reclamation and having it converted into part of our national wilderness system. It's over 100,000 acres of land. It's one of the few wildernesses in our wilderness system that has a complete ecosystem where you've got predators and preys, mountain lions, bears, elk, deer, beautiful streams and fishing. It's not just like the massive rocks that so many wilderness, have of scenic views. This is real wilderness area. And to have that preserved, I think was really one of my more satisfying accomplishments.
And for those of us who never got to be with him, but got to certainly enjoy all of his great music, what was John Denver like to you? What kind of person was he?
I'm a country boy.
Well, John was much like he appeared on a one-on-one situation that you saw him on TV or in concerts. Very high energy, very active, very positive person. The part that was different is he also had moments of sadness and despair that I would see, as part of his staff working with him. And you wouldn't normally see that on a TV special or a concert show like that. Even when he was having a hard time, he was such a professional, you would never know that in the performance. But I remember one concert with him that, during the intermission, I went back and talked to him, and he said, geez, sometimes I don't know if I can even do the second half of these shows. I'm feeling, so bad right now about, other issues. But John was also somebody very, very astute politically in ways that I learned from. To give one example, the first time we went to testify in Washington, D.C., John agreed to do it on one condition, and the one condition was that I couldn't tell anybody he was coming. And I thought, well, that's the whole reason I wanted him to come, right? But I thought, well, hey, I get to fly back with him in his Lear. I'll build a relationship. It's not going to be a waste. But he really had thought this through, and what he had figured out that if they knew he was coming, the media would do stories about John Denver coming to Washington. He knew there'd be somebody in the press pool covering the hearing. And so by them not knowing he was going to show up for the hearing, what happened is they wanted to find out why he came. So then the story became about the issue instead about him. So he had figured out those kind of nuances in his work with politics, and how to leverage those kinds of things. The other thing is, you know, he was so consistent. His primary message, he told us over and over again, that we've got to make the shift from a you or me world to a you and me world. And that was so key to every project we got involved in. He wanted to see that element interjected into it.
Boy, that's certainly needed today, isn't it?
It certainly is. And if we don't realize that we're one human family, and that we have all of us the ability to want to strive and live our lives to greater potential, and we all need support in that area, then we end up just countless and useless battles with each other, with our different nations, with different parts of the world and groups and organizations. And that philosophy was very important to him. So
that's awesome. It's great that you're able to share that with us today. And we really look forward to having you back on a regular basis. You're a wealth of information about how we can help save this planet, and an inspiration about how an individual can make a big difference. So, Dave Randle, thank you for all you do, and thanks for being with us today on Peacevision.
Thank you for having me on, John.
See you soon.
Okay, take care.